Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Sam and welcome to Semantics Reads and Writes. And today we're going to be doing a wrap. So this is my February wrap up for the books I read in the month of February. So February has so far been my best reading month, which isn't saying much. It's the second month of the year. But I read a total of 9 books. Of these 9 books, 3 were physical books that I physically read. 2 were books that I listened to on audio, and 4 were ebooks. So I read a lot more ebooks than I normally do, which is a good thing. I have a whole bunch of ebooks that I want to catch up on, so that's a good thing to do. In total, I read over 2,000 words, so about 2,000 pages. 2,224 pages approximately, according to Storygraph. Of these books, I owned 7 of them when I read them. I got 1 book from Libby and 1 book from Kindle Unlimited. And then my average rating for these books was 3.5. So let's just start at the beginning with what I read. And I'm just going to go in the order of the month. I don't go by ratings, I just go by order of when I read them. The first book that I read in February is a romance, technically. And it's one that I actually got from Libby. So this was an audiobook that I listened to, and that is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. This is the first book of the Into Darkness series. This is a stalker romance, but it's like a consent, non-consent kind of stalkery romance. So she knows he's stalking her and he's kind of asking permission for it, but it's still not really like consent. So it's a very it's a little gray area, and then they fall into a romance, and it's actually very cute romance. Like, this book had no right being as adorable as it was, and I liked it better than Butcher and Blackbird, honestly. I thought it was much more well written. I did think that the ending of this book was a bit unnecessary, if you will. But I will say, watch your trigger warnings for this one. This follows a trauma nurse named Allie. She's burning out at work. Like I said, she works as a trauma nurse, which is a very demanding job. And her release is she follows these masked men thirst traps on TikTok, which we've all seen those. And she finds one, and she's been obsessed with this guy for a very long time, and she always comments on all of his videos and all of that. And turns out this guy, his name is Josh, and he lives not far from her. He's basically spent his life avoiding being in the spotlight, which is why he is a masked persona online, but he loves doing it. She kind of catches his eye, and the story goes from there. It's very dramatic. It's very interesting. Like I said, watch your triggers on this. They are listed at the beginning, and it's so funny in the audiobook because the male narrator, he lists off the tropes, and at the end you just hear a big sigh from him, and it's so funny to me. But yes, so highly recommend. I did give this about a 4.5 out of 5. I really liked it. Like I said, part of the ending I thought was unnecessary, and we really didn't need this whole subplot, but it is what it is, and I understand why it was there. It just doesn't mean that I like it. So we move on. This was honestly a great way to start the month, though. The second book I read was actually a novella. I was slipping a little bit into a reading slump at the beginning of the month after Lights Out, so I picked up a couple novellas. And the first one that I read was Love Potion number 69 by Valerie Pepper. This is the first novella in the Sacred River series, and I did not like this book. This is one of the reasons I have a hard time with novellas, is because of books like this. I find that I was underwhelmed by this story. I was confused by what was going on. It took me until the end to figure out what was happening, and at that point I had given up caring. I didn't feel like I was able to connect with the characters really much at all, and unfortunately because of this I gave it a 2.5. I think the idea behind this novella was really good. I think she needed more time, or she needed to explain it differently, because for me it just didn't work. So, and again, this is my opinion. This doesn't reflect on everybody or on the authors themselves. This is my personal opinion when it comes to all of these. The next novella that I read, so the next book that I read, was Falling for Valentine by Katie Rios. This is the second Katie Rios book I've read. I read The Hitman Saves Christmas back in December, and this was a pre-release, so I actually pre-ordered this novella from her so that way I could read it on Valentine's Day when it came out, and honestly, this book was so much fun. It was a novella that featured, I can't remember their names off the top of my head. She is a drama teacher. She works on set design for a elementary school, and he is a contractor who has been hired to work on her building, and she comes out and complains to him, and she can't help but feel like he's so attractive, and we learn that he's just as attractive to her, or he's just as attracted to her, and the two of them end up forming like a working relationship when he decides to help her with building some sets for the play that her students are working on. So the romance goes from there. It's really cute. It's really short. I whipped through it and I absolutely loved it, but I found that I really like Katie Rios' writing, and so I will read more of her stuff. She does have some full-length novels that hopefully I will be getting into at some point. Alright, the next book that I read was one that I read, so for the prompt for the TBR game, the prompt for this one was a second chance author, and I read Survive the Night by Riley Sager, and I really liked it. I did not expect to enjoy this book at all. I expected to be bored. I expected to not want to know what happened. I expected not to care. And I was interested. This entire book, the main character had me so intrigued as to her personality, her ideas, everything. And while the first half of the book, wasn't exactly captivating, it was still intriguing enough that I wanted to know. And then the second half of the book, I couldn't read it fast enough to know what was happening. I loved it. I really, really loved the second half of this book. So I will say that the book wasn't super interesting until we got other points of view. So we got his point of view at one point at a couple of different points in this book, and I really, really enjoyed that aspect. So this follows film student Charlie, who is looking for a ride home. She's had a really rough semester and she just wants to go home to her grandmother's house, so she participates in a ride share, only to get into this car and realize partway into the drive that the serial murderer that is on the loose from the town where her school is might be the person driving her home. And the thriller really goes from there. I don't want to spoil any of it. I don't want to talk any more about anything that happens in this book, because that's all I knew going into it as well. And I don't think you need to know anything else. I really did like it. I now cannot get rid of all of my Riley Sager books, so I'm a little annoyed about that one. I will have to read each one and decide if I like it, because that's one miss and one hit. So I had a DNF, the first one that I read, and this one I gave a 4 out of 5. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I am so surprised to say that, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I haven't really fully stopped thinking about it because it's so well done. So yes, I really enjoyed it. I know not everybody likes this one, and that's okay. Again, this is my opinion. Kind of matches my shirt too. Oh, not a 4 out of 5. I gave it a 3 out of 5, not a 4 out of 5. I'm so sorry. I don't know my numbers. The next book that I read and finished was To Green Angel Tower Siege. This is the third book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series by Tad Williams. This is part 1 of To Green Angel Tower. I finished this one. It took a while, and I've actually been taking a break from finishing the series just because I needed a break from this world. This is the third book in the series, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it because a lot has happened. But I will say I really enjoyed the direction this took. I'm intrigued now that a lot of the characters are together, what's going to happen. And with what happened at the very end, I'm a little concerned, which I feel like I have a right to be concerned about what our characters are doing. But this series follows Simon, who is a kitchen boy in the palace, and he is bored of life. He is 14 or 15 years old at the start of this series, and he wants adventure. He wants to be a knight. He wants to be in big battles and make a name for himself. When suddenly he is sent on the run when the emperor dies and the new king that takes over is not what everybody assumes. There's something dark about him. There is something very unsettling, and Simon is sent on the run after his teacher is murdered in front of him. And so it follows his story as he's suddenly thrust into this magical realm, this world that he has never really been a big part of. He's always been the kitchen boy, and now he needs to actually fight. He needs to do things, and it's him struggling to become a man and struggling to figure out what that means for him. So I've been really enjoying this series. This is the beautiful broken binding edition of this series, and I'm so happy that I was able to join their subscription in time to get this series. So very excited, and I do plan on having a full spoilery vlog about reading this series. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, because it's like over the course of like 5 months that I've been reading this series, so yeah, it's a long one. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5, so it's not my favorite of the series so far, but it is really high up there as far as how much I enjoyed it. As of right now, I think the first one's still my favorite. The next book that I read, it was technically, I guess, another novella, is the first in the series, and it is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. This bind-up is the first 5 books, so don't be fooled by the size of this leather-bound book, but the first book was this long. So it was 122 pages. I enjoyed this. I don't know that I've actually ever read the novelization of The Wizard of Oz, and I'm intrigued now because at the end of that I had a story idea. Not the point, but this follows Dorothy. For those of you who don't know, Dorothy is a small girl. She's very small. She is tiny. A tiny girl from Kansas, and in the book she's like 10 years old. Like, she's little. And she gets blown up in a tornado and she ends up in the magical land of Oz, and she has to figure out how to get back home to Kansas. So why anyone would want to return to Kansas after being in the I don't know, but she wants to go home. She's got a little dog named Toto. That sounded so weird, Toto. She's got a little dog named Toto, and she meet some new friends along the way. There's a lot more in the book than there was in the movies, which makes sense. There's always more in the books than in the movies, but it's very interesting because that's also part of Wicked. So it all kind of melds together. I understand where this is all coming from, and I do plan on continuing with these and reading the other novellas now too. So yeah, we'll see. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5. It was good. It dragged, but it's a classic, so I assume a lot of classics kind of drag a little bit, but I did enjoy it, honestly. As for a children's book, I would definitely read it to kids. Like, it was a good story still, so. The next book that I read is one that I've had on my shelves for a while, and it was actually a gift that I got at one of the last, if not, I think the last Polycon that I went to, and that is My Lucky Number 13. By Piper Rain. This is the first book in the Hockey Hotties series, and I was so surprised. I enjoyed this. I binged this book in one sitting, and I did not expect to. I am really hit and miss with hockey romances because I like watching games of hockey, and I do enjoy how brutal they can be, and a lot of romance just kind of skates over that. Pun not intended, but also intended. And so for me, it doesn't feel like real hockey sometimes. This one, it didn't matter. It just felt like fun. It was a good time. It was a Midwestern good time too, because he's from the Midwest and I appreciated that. I think he's from Wisconsin. So there you go. Like, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this one. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Was it a, like, well-written, something brand new, something I've never written? No, it wasn't. But it was fun, and I enjoyed my time, and I enjoyed the groveling that was in this one. I enjoyed their relationship. I enjoyed meeting the family. I enjoyed a lot of aspects to this book. I think it could have gone more. I think it could have gone with another like round or two of edits. Just a couple of spelling and stuff in there, which happens. That's not unheard of. That's not abnormal. but I was surprised how much I enjoyed this book. So now I want to read the others because the next book in this series was about one of my... I really am curious what happens with that guy. He's one of my favorites. And then the third book, too, is a single dad, which I'm also curious about, which I have a soft spot for single dad romances for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know, but I do. So yeah, I'm curious, and I really, really did enjoy this one more than I thought. That being said, I gave it a 3 out of 5 because it wasn't anything super exciting, nothing to write home about, but it was good, it was entertaining, I liked it. That's about where it ends though. Alright, so the last 2 books that I read in the month of February were the first 2 books in a new series that I have since finished, but I'm only going to talk about the first 2 here. The first one is an ebook that I bought during one of those Stuff Your Kindle days, and that was The Stalking Dead by Eva Chase. This is the first book in the Gang of Ghouls series by her. It is a completed quartet. So this book follows Lily, who is 18, I believe, at the start of this book, and she is just moving back home after being in an asylum for 7 years for a crime she cannot remember. She can't remember what happened. She just remembers a bit before that, and then like months later, as whenever she's then being driven to the hospital where she is for the next 7 years, she comes back and she's determined to prove to her parents that she can take care of her sister because her parents are kind of shitty people. And so she really wants to get her sister out of that situation. She needs to prove that she's able to take care of not just herself, but also her sister. And she ends up getting bullied pretty badly in college, but while she's there, her 4 imaginary friends from when she was a child show back up. And these are ghosts of gangsters, and they find a way to get back into her life. And it kind of goes from there. It's kind of crazy, it's kind of weird, but it's apparently what I needed as a palate cleanser because I gave the first book a 3.75. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, honestly. I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed it because it was going to be a hit or miss, nothing in between really. And I'm really happy to say that I enjoyed it. The story wasn't complex in the first one. It was pretty straightforward. You had to just suspend your disbelief on several things, but that's the way it goes in urban fantasy. I was told that this story was like Alice in Wonderland-esque, but then I don't quite understand that one. So that one didn't really make sense to me. I'm still not exactly sure where to make that connection, but I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy the first one. The second one is called Criminal Spirits. That was the second book in the Gang of Ghouls series, and I enjoyed that one a little less than the first one. I think this one had almost more exposition in it than the first one did. And it was just kind of starting to get to know everybody a little bit more. The romances started. We had romance in the first one, but it kind of escalated in the second one. So it was good. I gave it a 3.25. I really can't say much about it because, again, it's a series. You can't tell you about second, third, and fourth ones when there's the first one. Yes. So overall, honestly, it was a pretty good reading month. So I'm happy with what I've read. I'm impressed that I read as much as I did because I wasn't really in a solid reading mood, I don't think, for most of the month. So 9 books, pretty damn good. So I guess I was in a reading mood without realizing it. But that's what I got for you guys here today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, please. It helps me out so much in the long run. And it's good to see a lot of new faces here. But yes, so that's what I got for you guys. If you did, I will see you in the next video. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, keep reading, and keep moving forward. Bye!